is me putting on this professional facade and being serious and acting like I know everything and I have all the right answers. Is that sustainable in our work, in our culture, in our life? No. We're going to stress out. We're going to burn out. And the more we can be our fun, playful inner selves and authentic selves, the more sustainable that is.
Welcome to the Workforce Link podcast, where we're offering forward-thinking conversations for the workforce, linking employers and job seekers to a brighter tomorrow. I'm your host, Sunday Joe Graham, and I am happy to be back with you for another episode today. Adulting. It's hard, am I right? Get caught up in the day-to-day responsibilities of our jobs, our families, etc. And that can be so easy to do that sometimes we forget to have fun, right? And if we're not careful, we'll burn out or get caught up in the toxic hustle culture, you name it, right? Well, today's guest is going to help us figure out a way to avoid those things. He's going to help us unleash our inner child and help our productivity soar. Mike Montague is a game show host, public speaker, podcaster, and writer at Playful Humans. He's been a radio DJ, karaoke host, virtual game show host, MC, and DJ for live events, including opening for Billy Idol and Frankie Vall, and performing at the Kansas City Chiefs and Toby Bar and Grill. He's hosted game shows for Meta, Google, Hanes, Subway, T-Mobile, Express, and many more. His mission is to help adults discover the power of playing for a living and how to avoid burnout, quiet quitting, or a midlife crisis. I don't know about you, but just reading that bio makes me excited about what we're going to talk about today. So in this episode of the Workforce Link podcast, we will learn from Mike how to be more creative, why play is important in productivity, why grinding doesn't work, and how we can be more playful. I don't know about you. I'm pretty excited. I know I've said it already. And maybe that's just because I'm an overgrown child myself, but nonetheless. Before we dive in though, I'd love to ask for a favor. Make sure you share this episode with someone else. The more you share, the more people we get to help. And thank you in advance for doing so. Now, let's get to today's episode on how the power of play can boost your productivity with our special guest, Mike Montague. All right, Mike, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate you taking time out to just hang out with us for a little bit.
So good to be here. Always a fun thing to talk about, too.
Speaking of fun, so I'm excited about today's episode, just learning how to have fun, how to play at work. Sometimes I think we get this idea that we aren't allowed to have fun at work or can't do fun things at work. And so today I'm excited because I feel like we're giving people permission to have some fun.
That's exactly it. And yeah, I think the first lesson off the bat is that play is not the opposite of work. The opposite of work is like sloth, boredom, sitting on your butt, not doing anything.
Right.
Play is like the fun uncle of work. It's you're doing a lot of work, energy. If you think back to when you're a kid, like if you're building a fort or, a tree house or something, you're going to do a lot of work and play, a lot of sports or, whether you did scouts or crafts or anything, you're putting a lot of time, effort, and energy to create things, to make things, to build connections with other people. It's just in a different mindset and a different mode of working, which I think is a lot more fun and sustainable.
Right. Yeah. So to play off that, why is play... See what I just did there? I didn't do that on purpose, but why is play important to productivity?
Well, I think most of it is a big misconception that we've already mentioned, that productivity actually comes from flow state and from creativity and from confidence and from working together and communicating with other people. And all of those things are more likely to happen when you're in a playful state than when you're in a work mode and stressed out. So mostly it comes down to human biology and the way we all evolved, that if we're stressed out, if we're freaked out and we think like, our lives in danger, our work, our success, our emotional health is in danger, our brain locks down and it all focuses into like one answer that we believe to be the right answer to allow us to survive the situation. That does not produce the best results. When we're stressed out and we're grinding and we're trying really hard, and studies have even shown, even working long hours, that you think you have to work hard and long on a problem, our bodies slow down and our brain slows down, and we end up getting this diminishing return, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you can just imagine if you stayed up working nonstop for 3 days in a row, you would get so tired and so delusional from being exhausted and no sleep that you would start producing less than if you had just gone to bed for 8 hours, woken up, and started working again.
Yeah.
Well, that happens all of the time in our work environments. If we work more than 60 hours a week for more than 6 weeks in a row, we're so burnt out and tired and stressed that we are producing less than if we had just worked 40 hours a week that whole time. So
Yeah.
it really quickly it passes over. Now we go to the opposite side of things, which is when we're in a playful state and we're being creative and our spirits are high and our mind is working in a loose format. We can start creating interesting ideas to go around obstacles. We can use our creativity. One of my favorite stats is that 97% of people, when they are faced with a challenge, do one of two things: more of what they were currently doing or less of what they were currently
Mm-hmm.
doing. But only 3% of people will try something else.
That's
And
crazy.
most of it's because we're all stressed out, right?
Right.
But if we can sit back, if we can relax, if we're in a playful state, we go, oh, that didn't work. Let me try something else. Let me see if this works over here. Or let me try a little bit more, a little bit less, and see if that makes a difference. But I found the biggest thing is the confidence that when we're doing our best work, when we feel like we're engaged, when we're having fun at what we're doing, we want to do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
want more of what turns us on, excites us, get us engaged in our work. And if it's boring, if it's lame, if we feel like we're losing, we want to do less of that. We want to get away
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah.
And so jobs, companies, roles, what we're the types of work that we're choosing to do, we want to do more of things that make us feel like our playful inner child is awakened.
I love that. I've worked for leaders who are both like very serious and would never even consider saying the word play. And I work for one now who has a great sense of humor, makes our staff meetings not boring because I hate meetings and they're boring.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I love to come to work knowing that I get to serve a leader and be part of the mission for what we do, because she's willing to look at things like that. And I think it makes a huge difference. It makes me not dread coming to my job. And I think so many of us also, um, I think sometimes we get this idea that being playful is being irresponsible. Would you speak to that for a second?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that happen there, and we've already mentioned several of them. The number one is like the stakes. When we take ourselves and our lives and our work too seriously, and we're saying we have to be responsible adults and we have to do good work and things, that it is a good intention, but it's really bad in practice.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is what you see in like our society now, this polarization of like, if this is so serious, if this is life and death, we absolutely have to dig in our heels and we can't be flexible. We have to like defend what we believe is right and the right choice. And you get infighting in companies. You get people, going their separate ways, or they feel like they have to leave the organization. And the most responsible thing to do is realize that we're all in an improv situation. There is no right answer.
That's
There
good.
is no permanent solution to anything. None of us planned on the pandemic. None of us planned on
Right.
AI. None of us knew this stuff was coming. So once you realize that we're in an improv situation, you can start implying like those improv rules. The best thing to do is say yes and, not no, I'm right, I'm going to go this way, and start fighting with your partner. When you start realizing that you're all in a team, we're all in this together, we're all making this up as we go along.
Right.
There's no roadmap, there's no right answer. There's no way for us to be serious and responsible with it. Is that we can still take time and attention, and we can do it with the right heart and attitude that we want to do our best work. But what that is doing is really our best work comes from being in a playful, creative state and connecting and working with other, and in a culture that is not taking itself or its work too seriously.
Yeah. It's hard for me. It makes me laugh when you just end with that, not take our work too seriously. And I've got my dog standing on the couch in the window behind us.
Exactly.
It's perfect timing, right?
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't have
and
a
I think
roadmap to make this interview perfect.
right. But what happens is people watching and listening connect with you more. They
Right.
don't connect with you less. So when we
Absolutely.
put up this shield and this fake, I'm going to wear a suit and a tie today. And I thought about this interview. I was like, I'm comfy. I'm wearing a sweatshirt. You know, we're both in Missouri. It's that time of the year. You know, I was like, well, I could go. My closet's right over there. I can go grab a tie and suit and do that. But that's not who I am. I
Yeah.
want to connect with people, and I want people to like me for who I am, not for
Right.
the facade that I'm putting on.
Yeah.
So
And
it turns out that the more real we are and the more authentic we are, the easier it is to make connections with people. And then we don't have to keep up that stress of wearing a facade all day, every
right.
day. It burns us out and we end up quitting our job anyway because we don't get to be our real selves at work.
Right. Yeah. I was just going to say that. I think people are more than ever craving authenticity.
Yeah.
And we really do have to learn, like, you can still be professional, you can still laugh, you can still be your authentic self because people relate to that.
I mentioned it a few times, but the word I love that I found this year is human sustainability. And whether you're an employer or an employee, you got to think about the sustainability of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, whether it's wearing comfortable shoes instead of like high heels or dress shoes and things, you're like, no, we're all adults. It's 2024. They make comfortable shoes
Right.
that look good, right? So we can all just wear comfortable shoes, and then we can be more sustainable in our work and what we're doing, and we can actually move around and things like that. But now apply that to everything. And you go, okay, well, is me putting on this professional facade and being serious and acting like I know everything and I have all the right answers, is that sustainable in our work and our culture and our life? No. We're gonna stress out, we're gonna burn out, and the more we can be our fun, playful inner selves and authentic selves, the more sustainable that is. And the more we
Yeah.
realize that we're gonna make mistakes, we can overcome those. And if we're doing them with the right intentions, then it'll be fine. It's a lot
I
easier.
can only speak for me, but I'm a lot more creative when I'm in comfortable shoes.
Absolutely. For sure. I do a lot of entertaining and performing and stuff. So if I'm on stage doing a keynote or hosting a 2-day boot camp or even a game show or a team building workshop with Lego for people, like I want you, if you're going to get into a connected space and have fun and be perform, you have to feel your best.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's actually an old Steve Martin joke, by the way. He's one of my favorites, but
He's
they asked
awesome.
him, you know, Steve, how can you be so funny? And he said, well, each morning when I wake up, I put a.
I just want to interrupt for a quick second to tell you about something really amazing that's happening in the central region of Missouri right now. Are you a business owner or manager who needs assistance increasing your profit margin and building a strong workforce? Well, now is the time to take advantage of our employer services. The Central Region Missouri Job Centers are ready to help. Available at no cost to you, we offer a variety of employer services, including job matching, consulting, work opportunity tax credits, on-the-job training, incumbent worker training, transition assistance, and more. You can get all the details at cwdregion.com/employer services, and I will share the link to that in the show notes for you. We look forward to assisting you with all your employer needs today. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
It's actually an old Steve Martin joke, by the way. He's one of my favorites, but
He's
they asked
awesome.
him, you know, Steve, how can you be so funny? And he said, well, each morning when I wake up, I put a slice of bologna in each one of my shoes, and that way when I'm walking around all day, I feel funny.
Gross.
But it's very similar for
That's
our
funny.
work, though. Like if
Right.
we feel confident and you know and connected to the mission, and we're feeling playful and creative, then we're gonna do more of those things. If we're stressed out, if we're feeling serious, if we are burnt out, then we're gonna get more of that.
Yeah.
too.
And the people around us feel that, you know. So I also write music and play music out, and I love sometimes to just do it barefoot because it just, number one, it's my comfort zone and I just feel more comfortable. But I play on the worship team at our church as well, and sometimes I'll just come out there barefoot and play, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm being me. I'm comfortable, and it works. So, but I actually had somebody point that out to me one day after church. They're like, "I just want to let you know, I loved that. Like, I loved that you just came out and were comfortable and did your thing." And I'm like, we don't have time to not be ourselves. We don't have time to not be authentic and try to wear these masks because, I mean, whether it's in our personal lives or our professional lives, we just ain't nobody got time for that.
No, we really don't. And it's really more time of us not living like our fullest selves.
Right.
Right. And so I think there are times, but we're all, it's funny. I talk about this a lot, right? And people are always like, well, aren't there times where you shouldn't be playful? Like if it's a funeral or something serious is going on, there actually are lives at stake. And there's a couple of things that I think come to mind. Number one is, if you're worried about that, you probably actually need to be more playful. Like the
That's
ones that
good.
are actually causing problems are the ones that don't have a filter. They're not self-aware. They're not worrying about what other people think. As long as you're showing up with generosity and care for other people and you're reading the room, I'm a performer.
Yeah,
And
read
you
the
are
room, definitely.
needs to read the audience. So no, I don't bring, inappropriate jokes to work, but I can bring jokes to work. That's a
Right.
different situation. And the second thing I think that happens is that in those stressful situations, that's actually when we need humor the most. When you look at people
100%.
like, you know, Navy SEALs or people doing really serious things or in surgery and stuff, like a brain surgeon needs to be loose and relaxed. They can't be freaked out that they're going to kill somebody if they move their arm wrong or they sneeze. Like
Right.
that's only going to make it more likely to happen. And so I think what we miss is that life is this like it's a Google search algorithm kind of thing, or social media. It's like if you go looking for puppies and playfulness and happy thoughts, it'll serve it up to you. If you go out into your life and your work looking for stress, anxiety, professionalism, and buttoned up people that are really serious, you're going to surround yourself with that, and you're going to get treated by people like it's serious and that it needs to be more professional. And so
Absolutely. Yeah,
it
you
doesn't
do.
have
You
anything
do.
to do with the results. You're just designing the culture that you're getting those results in.
Right. And you're so right that reading the room is so important. Like for me, I mean, humor is my coping mechanism as well as the rest of my crazy sick family, and so we will laugh at some funerals and tell. And
Absolutely.
unfortunately, we've had to laugh at way too many in the last 2 years. We've buried 7 family members in the last 2 years, and so sometimes it's like you got to laugh or you're just gonna cry all the time, and so, but again, it's back to that, reading the room. You figure out when to laugh and when to not laugh, and sometimes we don't know the difference, but it happens.
But that's okay,
Right.
right? Like, what damage is really done there? I think, the interesting thing for me is all the scientific research that I've done, and I've read like dozens of books, all the top books on the subject. You can look up research. You can just Google it right now or ask ChatGPT.
Hmm.
But playful, engaged companies perform better than those that don't. People that are authentic, fun, and smile more, they have more friends. They actually lose more weight because they're active and they have confidence, and they're doing more interesting social things and moving around. Um, Everything to salespeople sell more, customer success has higher net promoter scores, and all kinds of other scores that every single metric you look at goes up when people are more playful and engaged versus when they're stressed, burnout, and checked out.
Yeah.
So to me, it's obvious. And even if situationally, then you end up in a spot where that doesn't fit, what you need to look at is long term. Am I spending more time playfully, and are we creating this organization that we want and this work culture that we want, because that long term is what's going to pay off.
Yeah, I love that. So give us some practical tips. How can we be more creative? How can we be more playful?
Hinted at a lot of these already, but for me, number one is you got to fix your mindset. You need to get yourself into a playful state. So I have a personality quiz on my website. You can go to playfulhumans.com/quiz. That's a good place to start, because play doesn't mean, I think people confuse this again as like being childish
Mm-hmm.
versus being childlike. So what did you like to do as a child? Did you like puzzles and games? Did you like sports and athletics? Do you like music and art? Do you like jokes? Do you like exploring new things, puzzles and challenges? There's a lot of different ways you can be playful, but what gets you into that mindset? I know whenever I'm doing big performances or I have a big thing coming up, I like to watch stand-up comedy or see other really great people, like watch videos of I don't know, Jamie Foxx or somebody like
Mm-hmm.
hosting an award show, and be like, okay, that's the mindset I want to be in. I have a lot of inspirations. Can't see them all behind me, but I mentioned, Steve Martin. There's Dave Barry as a humor writer that's hilarious. Bare Naked Ladies, I feel like, are smart and funny musicians. And just, I call them creative nerds. These people that are like really smart people and really talented at what they do, but they're also not afraid to be silly. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that about people. So if I can put myself into that state, then no matter what I do next, I'm already approaching it with that attitude. Behavior wise, there is a bunch of things in this bucket that you can do. So moving your body is the number one thing. When we get all tense and stressed up, our back body, or even our vision, focuses in on this tight, narrow mindset. So if you can get outside, if you can get a 360 things surrounding all sides of you rather than backed against a wall, your brain opens up and you start having to pay attention to things all around your head. The unlimited space of outside above your head really helps change your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And movement is the number one thing. If you're having a bad day, go move the body, jump up and down, take a dance break, whatever you got to do, even if it's just walk outside or do a couple of quick exercises in your office, squats in your chair or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just changing that will start changing the chemicals in your body.
Yes.
And then I think techniques are breaking patterns and being yourself. So when you go into any type of meeting or work, I try to be really self-aware and just listen to myself, that these inner child things are usually a whisper, and usually the stress and everything yelling at you is like a loud yell, right? It's like the world's telling you, and your brain is yelling at you like, you need to pay rent.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make this sale right now, or you're not going to be able to pay your rent. And that's a yell. But there's this little whisper inside of us that's just our creative subconscious saying, like, it would be really funny if you made a joke right now. Or, what would be really generous is if we, bought a cup of coffee for the person behind us. That little like hint is just a whisper. And so we need to listen to more of those. And when you take action on them, they grow. It's just like I talked about with that search engine thing, is take really small, tiny things. Like I said, we're both on, Zoom video right now. You can wear crazy outfit on the bottom half of your body, and you're the only one that's going to know.
Right.
And it'll make you feel funny. It'll put you in a playful state, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious. So I like funny things on my head just because I don't have hairstyles that I can play with. So, a funny hat or a silly, bandana or something that I can put on, like as I'm creative writing, will like put me in a funny mood, and it starts to change those things. And once you start paying attention to those whispers, they get louder and you get used to doing it. You're like, oh, okay, here's another prompt. Here's something funny I can say, or here's something that I can do to make other people feel happy, and focusing on that.
Love that. Side note, you mentioned Steve Martin. I have a friend here in Branson, Matt Gum is his name, and he does a show here. He's hilarious. And we went and watched his show this past weekend, and he does a tribute to SNL and part of that show. And he does the Wild and Crazy Guys with Steve Martin and Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah.
I'm a huge old school SNL fan. And so I thought you would appreciate that. It was pretty hilarious.
I used to love that. I used to do that all the time with my family and stuff. And I thought you were going to say in Branson, like the banjo. I wonder if his bluegrass band ever comes through, Steve
You
Martin
know,
and stuff.
I feel like they came to Silver Dollar City once several years ago, but I'm not 100% sure.
So what I think is fascinating, and it's a great example of finding a role model that you like, because he is for me above all of them, because he's written books and screenplays and movies and
Hmm.
stuff. Read his autobiography; it's incredible, and he's super smart. He wrote one whole chapter in one of his books without using a period. He wrote a joke chapter about a period shortage in the English language, so the only period in the whole chapter was at the very end, the very last sentence. And so he
Wow.
would use question marks or exclamation points or colons and bulleted lists and all kinds of funny different grammatical things that he was just playing with the English
Yeah,
language for fun. But
that's
it shows
great.
you that that's really smart and intelligent. You can't do that if you're just being frivolous and crazy. So that you can
Yeah.
have these things together. And so his musician and his acting and his writing and his other arts and stuff really, to me, inspires me to say, okay, I don't have to be one thing. I don't have to be smart or funny. I can be both. And it just, I can think about that anytime
Yeah.
I want and be like, what would be really good in this moment? What would somebody
Yeah.
like Steve Martin?
What would Steve Martin do? You need a bracelet.
And I do, and I have his quotes down here, but one of them is, "Be so good they can't ignore you." And I
Hmm.
think about that a lot. I think a lot of times, especially employees, think, "Well, if I stand out, I'm going to get unwanted attention." Right? But what
Hmm.
we don't think about is when we go out of the way, if we're really good at it, if we're so good that they can't ignore us and they go, "Oh my gosh, we have to have this person in our company," then we become indispensable and extremely valuable. If we're just fitting in and we're only doing our job and we're wearing the same gray suit as everybody else to work and we're checking the boxes and stuff, they can completely ignore us
Hmm.
because we're a cog in a wheel that they can replace with somebody else that can do that job,
Yeah.
or they can automate it and have AI or a robot do it.
Right. I would also add to that, we can do the same for ourselves. It's part of that being in the mundane, just showing up in the same gray suit every day, doing the same thing. Like we don't even pay attention to ourselves. So if we can't do that for ourselves, how can we expect anybody else to pay attention to us?
Yeah. There's another quote from one of the mentors I had. I learned about it maybe like, gosh, 13 years ago now, 15 years ago. But he said, "Are you sitting back and saying, like, when will somebody notice me? Or are you asking yourself, when will I do something worthy of being noticed?"
Oh, that's so good.
It's such a great question. I ask myself that all the time. And it's also an old 90s song. If you're bored, then you're boring. I think that's Flagpole Sitter, Harvey Danger. But, it's a great line that is like, if you're bored, that means you're boring.
I
That
love
means you're
that.
not coming up with something interesting and fun and creative to do. So if you're burnt out at work, why are you burning yourself out? If you're bored at work, why are you bored? You need to be more creative. You need to step up and do something interesting. And once I take
I
that
love that.
responsibility on myself, it becomes a lot more fun.
I need to get a t-shirt made that says "Stop being boring."
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, this has been great. Short, to the point, and very powerful. Is there anything else, Mike, that you want to share with us before we close out today? I will share the link also to your website in our show notes. And is it the quiz you said as well? I'll make sure we share the link to that.
Yeah, playfulhumans.com/quiz. That's the website. It's also the podcast, that since you're a podcast listener and watcher, it's everywhere you listen to podcasts and stuff, Playful Humans.
Great.
I think the last thing I would say, is one of my favorite quotes. This is from a former Supreme Court justice. And he said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive." And that's Howard Thurman. And to me, that really kind of sums it all up of what we've been talking about
Yeah.
here today. is that we don't need more robots. We don't need more computers. We have those now. So 100 years ago, when we designed the school system and our work culture and the 8-hour work week, we needed human beings to be robots. We didn't have robots. So we needed factory workers to sit on a line and do the same thing over and over again for 8 hours a day. But now 100 years later, we have machines that can do that.
Yeah.
We need humans to be creative, to connect with empathy and creativity and care for other human beings, things that the robots and AI still can't do.
Yeah, I can't do and won't ever be able to do.
Yeah. And it's a global economy. So if somebody in your town doesn't like what you're doing, go find a new town or new company or new industry or whatever. Somebody does. It's better for you to come alive and go be your full self and then find people that like that than it is for you to change into something that everybody else likes.
I love that. So good. Well, this has been one of my favorite interviews, Mike. I really appreciate you spending time with us today and just teaching us how to be more playful.
I love it. Go do it. Go play.
Well, I hope that you had as much fun as we did recording that episode with Mike. A little laughter, a little Steve Martin jokes, and just a reminder for us to learn how to have fun at work. Learn how to not be boring. I really do think I need to get a t-shirt made that says, "Stop being boring." But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I hope it serves as a reminder for us to go be playful. Go remember to laugh, do something funny at work today, and inspire your people to go do the same. Again, I will share the link to Mike's website in the show notes, as well as the link to the quiz that he talks about. And if you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it with somebody else that you think could benefit, somebody else that might just need to learn how to laugh. And don't forget to leave a review and let us know what you thought of this episode. It really does mean a lot to us, and it helps us stay visible so others can find us. Have a great week, my friend. And until we meet again, remember this: there's always a brighter tomorrow if you're willing to find it. The Central Region Workforce Development Board Incorporated and COPIC are equal opportunity employers and programs. Auxiliary aids and services are available upon request to individuals with disabilities. Missouri Relay Services at 711.